Nowadays, M&M's clothes fit them a lot better than they did back in the early 2000s. And that's because there are trends in fashion. And right now there's nothing cooler than future kimonos. A lot of people attribute these trends to money or marketing by big companies. But in this TED Talk by Derek Thompson, he talks about how humans love new things, but at the same time we like to gravitate towards what we are familiar with. So hits and popular trends come from presenting familiar things in a new way, and creates what's known as the familiar surprise. Now to illustrate this idea, let's look at a market with no money or marketing behind it, and that is the naming of children. In the 1980s, Samantha was the 30th most popular name. So people are familiar with the name, right? You know a few Samanthas, but it's not super popular. And then all of a sudden in 92, it shoots up to the second most popular name. And then after a few years pass and there starts to be 3 or 4 Samanthas in each class, the name no longer has that new unique factor, and thus starts to decline in popularity. When Jiu-Jitsu first broke on the scene here in America, it was mostly for MMA and self-defense purposes, which is why the mount was probably the first position you were exposed to. But then as people started to focus on no-gi submission grappling, people like John Danaher asked themselves what positions currently exist in Jiu-Jitsu but are underutilized in the no-gi format. And this type of thinking, combined with formats like EBI, sparked a huge rise in the popularity of leg locks and back attacks. They were familiar submissions being used in a new way. So the question on everyone's mind is, what's next? What's the next big trend in Jiu-Jitsu? And in this video, we attempt to answer that question. The primary strategy often used in no-gi jiu-jitsu is to take your opponent's back, use your legs to trap the arm from the underhook side, then take a deep lat grip to switch to the overhook side and finish the choke. And we've seen Gordon do this for years, and he even did it last week. But there's no arguing that people are getting really good at defending the back, especially in these no time limit matches where matches have literally gone on for hours, with most of it being people trying to finish from the back.
Never felt someone with such strong ability to keep his hands in place and hand fight from the back.
Now granted, these clips are not from the no time limit format, but if you look at athletes from the B team, like Isaac Michelle, J-Rod, Ethan Krellinston, and even their leader, Craig Jones, I really haven't seen them trap any arms recently when attacking the back. So that could be a little micro trend going on in the back attack system world. But then again, Gordon just did it last week, so I'm not looking too much into this, because I think there's a bigger trend going on in the jiu-jitsu world, which Isaac explains here.
I started to go on top and apply some more top pressure, and that led to the armbar in the end.
In MMA, it's easy to create that pressure from the top through punches. But if you take out punches and add leg locks, all of a sudden the mount is no longer that enticing, and people are tending to shy away from it in no-gi jiu-jitsu. But we've seen Gordon kind of leading the charge and using the mount in a lot of his recent matches. And if you want to learn how to do it, I recommend you watch Danaher's mount instructional, or at least the free video on YouTube. But I think they're applying the same methodology that made leg locks so popular. The mount is a familiar position, but it was very underutilized no-gi. And now we're seeing new ways of applying pressure from the top to make it very valuable in the no-gi format, especially during these longer matches. Because even if you don't get the finish, the mount is going to drain your opponent's energy. Now, nobody loves a slick back take more than me, and if you're looking for style points, this is the way to go. You can have a beautiful back take, but oh man, you fell to the underhook side with a high ball ride, which is going to make it easy for your opponent to push your leg off and turtle. So you switch to the overhook side, displaying beautiful control of the back, which lasts almost 10 minutes. However, if you're not able to get the submission and your opponent eventually escapes, it's likely that you're going to be just as tired, if not more tired than your opponent, even though you were the one in the dominant position the whole time. And this can lead to your opponent answering with a back take of their own, or the match just going for a very long time. But when you use the mount position to apply pressure from the top, it doesn't require much energy on your part, and it is draining for the person on bottom. So I think we're kind of seeing the beginning of the smash era of jiu-jitsu, where you stay on top and just melt your opponent through mount position, leg riding, and pressure passing. Now this could very well just be me falling victim to the marketing tactics of these new instructionals, but I do believe over the next couple years we're going to really see the true value of these positions in no-gi jiu-jitsu. They have value in shutting down some other popular trends like leg locks and wrestle ups. With the rise in leg locks, a big trend has been to develop attacks off of your opponent's passes, which make you a very dangerous grappler to deal with, especially if you're able to wrestle up when those leg attacks don't work. A lot of times these leg locks are initiated by using a cross shoulder post to off balance us before hugging the leg and entering into the legs. And I don't know why this didn't click for me until I saw Gordon just laying limp on his opponent's frames. But Gordon talks about this in the free YouTube video for his first guard passing instructional.
Is to address my knee and start to knee elbow escape on this side. But as he goes to do that and push my knee down, now there's nothing that stops me from getting chest to chest. So now I can just push him back to a half guard
So the idea is just by going limp, we force our opponent to use his frame to keep us from getting chest to chest. His frame has a defensive function, but if we're trying to pass the guard and our head is above our own hips, that means we're not putting too much weight on our opponent's frames, and they can start to use those frames for offensive purposes. But if you watch Gordon passing the guard, his head is almost always in line with his hips or lower than his hips, which means he's putting so much weight on that frame that his opponent can't do anything offensive with that frame, because as soon as that frame moves, it melts under the pressure and Gordon gets his head over that far shoulder. And we're going to listen in to the New Wave team coaching Oliver Taza while he's trying to pass the guard of a dangerous wrestler.
Head over head, Taza, watch the wrestler.
If our head is over our opponent's head, especially if our head is below our hips, they're going to have a very difficult time wrestling up or honestly just doing anything offensive, because their arms are strictly being used for defense while we're trying to work to pummel past their legs or just smack their arms off until we can eventually melt their frames and get chest to chest. Another side effect of leg locks has been that less people prefer to play closed guard because it gives the top player the option to sit back on a leg lock. So to keep your feet safe, you put them on the inside, which leads very well into the smash era of Jiu-Jitsu.
Evaluate the complexion of the opponent.
And after you pass with the body lock, it's probably not a good idea to chase your opponent's head, and it will often result in them recovering their guard. A better option is to turn toward their legs, Khabib style, stepping over their legs and leg riding, and then start to work your way up towards the upper body. Unless, of course, they go for a no-gi Ezekiel choke.
Something we're very proud of at the B team.
Then it's okay. Chase their head, throw in your butterfly hook, and pass directly to mount. Now, if you're having trouble throwing in your butterfly hook, an interesting option here is to kind of put your foot up in the ready position, and then as you flare your knee and pull them off the mat, it's going to lower their leg and allow your butterfly hook to come in. Then you can put them back on the mat with your head in good position and work your way past their legs and to the mount. With ADCC right around the corner, I think we're going to see a lot of wrestle-ups and leg locks. But the great minds in Jiu-Jitsu are often looking for the next trend to stay ahead of the curve. And what this usually means is finding familiar techniques that are underutilized. And I think we're seeing the beginning of the smash era of Jiu-Jitsu, where techniques like body lock, passing, leg riding, and the mount are used to make life very miserable for your opponent and drain their energy. I think this is going to lead to a much less sexy era of Jiu-Jitsu, but I think it's much more relatable to the public than things like toe slipping from 50-50. And when you combine relatable technique with very controversial players, I think we're going to see a dramatic rise in the interest and popularity of Jiu-Jitsu. And the easiest way for you to contribute to the growth of Jiu-Jitsu is to like, subscribe, comment on videos like this, which is going to help spread the word. So leave a fist bump in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next video.